Hi, Roland. I just want to say thank you for all that you've done for our family. Thank you for all that you represented Hawaii through all your years of helping with the dragster. But most of all the times that we had with you and your family. Thank you for always opening your doors to us and having us over for whatever occasion. And I wish you peace. And I'm going to tell your family, please watch over each other and take care of each other until we meet again. Love you, Roland.
When I think about Roland, I think way back, because I think most people are familiar with his funny car career because that's what he did most of his career. But before that, there was a top fuel dragster, front engine top fuel dragster called the Hawaiian. And in its day, it was an extremely competitive car that won not only the NHRA Winter Nationals in Pomona, but also the U.S. Nationals in Indianapolis. And at that time, there were really only like 4 NHRA national events. So to win 2 of them kind of puts you as a racer in a class pretty much all by yourself. And so that's when I met Roland, and what I found was, and you have to understand, I was just a young kid going to the racetrack as an enthusiast and a spectator. This was long before I had a racing career of my own. So I idolized all of those people. And Roland's driver at that time, Don Prudhomme, before he was even the Snake, was an icon already. And so when I approached those people, I expected to be ejected from their pit area immediately and told, to go away. And with Roland, it didn't happen that way. He couldn't have been more friendly and accommodating. He answered all my stupid questions. And then, of course, it came time where he had to get back to business and prepare the car for the next round of racing or whatever. But I never forgot what a friendly guy he was. And then, as my own racing career evolved over the next decade, and then my 25-year career with the National Hot Rod Association evolved after that, he never lost that friendly relationship and accommodating relationship where he always had a smile on his face, he always had time to say hi. And then when I became involved here with the Lions Automobilia Foundation and Museum, pretty much whenever we opened the doors for a special event, Roland was here, and he was exactly the same as he had been for the last 60 or so years. And so to say that I'm going to miss him would be a huge understatement. He was a great friend of mine, and I will always have the highest level of respect for Roland Leong.
Hi, my name is Richard Romo. First time I met Roland was in Pomona, probably 1986, 87. And from that first time I met him, he was always a good person to me, always friendly, and he provided my childhood with all kinds of thrills and fun watching him and his team on the track. And then fortunately I got to know him personally, and I've been to his house a few times, and thank you for letting me hold one of your Wallies, because now I am the first kid on my block to hold a Wally. And I'll never forget that. Thank you for everything, Roland, and just be well, and eventually I'll see you again, brother. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Dunn, and want to talk today about Roland Leong. I worked for him for 7 years straight. That was a record, being on the payroll for him, but I worked not as a driver the whole time, as a crew member, and then eventually getting a ride in full-time in 81. I actually drove from the end of 1980. And Roland, to me, I mean, we didn't have a great record. In fact, it was pretty much a disaster. I got my first win with him though. That was great. I also crashed my first car with him, crashed my last car with him, and a couple in between. And Roland, though, he was, you know, he never blamed me for it. I mean, he wasn't happy about it. He got frustrated, obviously, but he just looked at, hey, we got to get this thing going and let's figure out how to get you back on the track and let's start racing again. And it ended in 84. I would say not on the best of terms, at least initially. You know, I said he fired me. He said, I didn't fire you, you left. Well, it was kind of a mutual agreement. He was happier with the new guy. So, and that guy went on, Rick Johnson, good driver, who I recommended and did a great job. And as I knew he would, they finished second in the points. 4 years that I drove, never even finished in the top 10. Third the year before with Ron Colson. So that doesn't explain what my time with Roland was about. I mean, we had a lot of fun, a lot of fun. A lot of stuff you can't even talk about. You know, I mean, the stories about, the ones you can tell about is how, you know, one time we had to get the body, we had the, I remember, I think it was 78, we had just got Avani Antennas as a sponsor. Tom Stratton was doing the paint up at Pomona, and we had to get it up for the Consumer Electronics Show. And we had to get it there by 5 o'clock or the union wasn't gonna let us park the thing. And he told me, he says, I don't care what you do, we got to get up there. I don't think we left for Vegas until like 2:30 or something. We had to be up there by 5. I mean, we ran 100 miles an hour up there with that truck and trailer, trying to get that car up there. And Roland says, hey, if you get caught, I'll pay for the ticket. And he was always good to his word. But you know, we had CBs back then, so we were on that, and we could tell where the cops were, and we made it, rolled that thing just before closing time, and then trying to get the union guys to push that thing in with 10 minutes to spare. They didn't want to start the job and then have to finish after 5 o'clock. Got a little dose of the union workers back then. Man, stories about Roland. You know, the big thing, like I said in the tribute to him, he introduced me to my wife, and it was Union Grove, Wisconsin, 1982, and Memorial Weekend. And there was a barbecue the racers were having that night, and I saw this girl over there, and I was looking at her, and I thought, man, she's pretty nice. Roland comes up and says, hey, why don't you just go talk to her? I said, nah, I mean, I said, I'm horrible at first impressions. I mean, that's why I drive a funny car, because at least a lot of times the women come to me because I drive a funny car. But if I had to rely on my ability to go make small talk, especially back then, forget about it. And he says, nah, he says, well, hold on. He walks over there. Within 2 minutes, she comes walking back with him. And says, Sandy, this is Mike. Mike, this is Sandy. You guys just, I'll paraphrase, just go have some fun. And we had some fun, just talking and carrying on and having a good old time. And then by the time it was all said and done, she told me I was the biggest effing jerk she ever met. And I thought, well, she's a pretty good judge of character. Maybe I should go chase after her. And 6 months later, we were married. And I've been with her for, it'll be 42 years this coming Memorial Weekend. And I owe that all to Roland. And the thing about that is, and the reason I tell this story, because it's not so, I mean, it is about me and my wife, obviously, but it's about Roland. Roland loved a lot of things. He loved Sandy, and he loved the fact that he introduced us, and we ended up getting married and stayed together for so long. I mean, to the end, he was sitting there saying, if somebody was up there, I mean, he didn't just blurt it out, but he said, if it just kind of came up, he'd say, you know, I introduced Mike and Sandy back in 1982. I'm the reason they got married. And you know what? He was. And my time with Roland, I mean, I would just say that was, for me, one of the most important things. I mean, I learned so much from Roland, but the fact that he did introduce me to Sandy, that was a big deal, and obviously that was a big deal in my life. So I don't know where my life would have been without Roland. We didn't have the success on the track that I wanted to, but I was lucky enough to go on and have some decent success and on the racetrack, and also doing the broadcast on ESPN, and which he was proud of that too. And I wouldn't have had that without Roland Leong. And I don't know, and like I said, I don't know what my life would be, and I don't want to know. And I'm just so glad that I had that 7-year record, that record time with Roland. That's the only real record I got out of there, but I got so much more when it was all said and done.
My name's John Capps Sr. I'm Ron and John Capps' father. And I first met Roland when Ron was driving the Cobe car, and Roland came on as a tuner, and got to spend a lot of time with him. And I've always bugging him about how he tunes and the methodology used. And unlike some people, his way was his way, and it worked really, really good. I mean, a lot of people would attest to it. He would take a problem and say, this is what the car's telling me it needs, and that's what he would do. Everything would change. He'd go, well, I'd seen that before. He'd go back, run the car, and say, well, it did this, but it didn't like that, change that. And he would somehow, like a Zen, what we call a Zen tuner. He had a feel for the car, like Alan Johnson has the same thing. He could tell you he's going to make a run. He can tell you how much blower he put in it, wing and all that stuff, what it takes to take in the clutch, and he can feel the car down the track. Roland was the same. He was attuned to everything to do with drag racing, and I learned a lot just shutting up and listening to him talk. It's an amazing, amazing man. Sure miss him.
Aloha, my name is James Takamine. I just wanted to express my sincere condolences and aloha to the Ohana. Lani, Landa, Susie, Shirley, everyone in the Ohana. Roland treated me like a son from the beginning. He's been a great mentor and a friend to me over the years. And I can say without a doubt that I would not have been able to get my car running at all without Roland, and for him introducing me to all the folks that helped me along the way. And but he's just a great human being, and really miss him a lot. And again, just a great friend and mentor to myself and to many other people that I know. So just wanted to express my aloha to the family. Mahalo.
Hi, I'm Mark Oswald. I have some very fond memories of Roland Leong. When I was driving the Candies and Hughes car, I guess Roland was probably some of Paul Candies and Leonard Hughes' best friends. And so consequently, we hung around quite a bit, and we got to be really close. But a funny thing happened with Roland is he always admired Leonard Hughes, and he wanted to use the flow bench in our trailer one time. So they told me, Mark, set that flow bench up for him. So we went back there, and I got his pump on there for him and everything, and I taught him how to use it, and we came back, and there was just a hellacious noise coming from the front of the trailer, and Leonard just went out of his mind, and all it was he had the fuel shut-off shut while he was turned the pump all the way on, but it strained their relationship for about 2 days. But no, they've always been close, and I always had the utmost respect for Roland.
Hello everyone, my name is Eric Yamaguchi, and I'm here just to give you my recollection of meeting Roland. The first time was in 1957. I was working at a gas station part-time. Those of you in Hawaii might know it was at the bottom of Pacific Heights Road and Paoa Road. And Roland was sketching the bus to go home. He would come across the street. At that time, one of the workers had a 57 Chevrolet. And Roland, we saw we had a keen interest in cars. In 1959, his mother had a 59 Oldsmobile, a 4-door hardtop. It was white, which we later nicknamed the Lurley. Well, classmate Alvin Kubo and myself took Roland to his first drag race, and we thought we were going to be spectators. So when we got there, Roland says, let's race this car. And I said, Roland, we can't race this car. Your mother would kill us. So he said, no, that's all right. Let's race it. I said, Roland, we don't have seat belts. He says, I've got seat belts. So what we did, being that it was a 4-door, it had bench seats, so we tucked one into the bench seat, and the other end we just kind of hid it under the left side of the seat, and we passed. So anyway, Alvin and I took turns, and we made the trophy run. Alvin was the one that drove the trophy run, and we lost. But a couple of months later, I found out that Roland had taken the engine out, put a Racer Brown roller tap in. He bought a 4-barrel manifold and 4-barrel carburetor. He bought a B&M transmission, and that was it. He was hooked. He also took his sister's car, a 59 Chevrolet 4-door hardtop Impala, 283, 3-speed, and he souped that all up. A couple of years later, he had a Corvette. Roland and I lost track of each other when he moved to the mainland until I moved to Los Angeles. I transferred, and we hooked up. I became a rep for Mr. Gasket, Seegers and Cams, Mylodon, A&A Fiberglass. Anyway, I represented a company called Mr. Phone, who was a nationwide repping firm, and I sold parts to the 2 biggest distributors in Hawaii. That was my territory because I still had my full-time job. And then later on, Roland gives me a call. He says, do you know the owner of King's Hawaiian Bread? I said, yeah, I do. I know Mr. Tyra. He said, you think we can get in and see if he would sponsor my car? I said, well, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So I made an appointment with Mr. Tyra. We went in, and he liked the presentation. Fortunately, his general manager also liked racing, so we were able to put a deal together for that. So anyway, through the years, my family knew Roland's family, my boys, in fact, babysat his girls when they were younger, and we kept in touch. I knew Shirley and Susie, and it's just been a wonderful off and on, but never really, you never forget your Hawaiian roots. And those are the fondest memories I have with Roland. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Glenn Menard. I ran Irwindale Raceway in 72-34, and then I ran the Texas Motorplex from 1986 to 93. Also an IHRA Vice President in 1988. But I want to take you back to 1973, Seattle International Raceway. Bill Donner had the famous Skipper's Fish and Chips race. It was made famous because of the race queen that was pretty controversial. She was so controversial that Olympia wouldn't let her in the tower, saying that they were a family brewery and didn't want her up there. Well, she proceeded to be in the pre-race parade while Bill Shrewsbury put her in his car and drove down the track. And Bill Donner was announcing, but he didn't have the courage to name her name. And you'll see more Donner later. So Bill had all of his bought-in funny cars do displays at Skipper's Fish and Chips all over the state. He'd run them around the state, 2 or 3 displays a day. And so when it came time to get paid, and by the way, Ed McCullough won that race, and it's in all the magazines, it's a famous race. So it came time to get paid, and Gordy Bonin told me this story. Roland told Bill, Bill, I race your race for free next year, but you must pay me $500 for every damn fish and chip store you send me to. And that's my Roland Leong memory from a long time ago. He raced for me much later at the Motorplex, and just a great man and a great individual. Thanks.
My name is David Harada, and I want to tell the family hello, and your father was like another father to me. We love you guys and love your dad. He was just a family to us. I don't know if you know, but he had a saying that he told me, you know, when I was 9 years old and my parents flew me out to LA, got on a plane by myself. But I always remember as a kid, and I didn't know what it meant till I got older, but he always said, do as I say, not as I do. And if you knew Roland and how he is, now you kind of understand what it meant. And it became kind of a joke, but it's really true. You know, it was really true. And he was a mentor to me, and you guys know that. I'm gonna miss calling him, talking to him as a friend, talk to him as when he helped me as a racer and how to become a racer and how to think. I'm gonna miss him mentoring me, chewing my ass in the nicest way you could, but I always knew he meant the best for me. And I wish my mom and dad could have been here too, but I'm gonna send my vibe of my parents to you guys and to the family. So we love you guys, and it was such a great honor to have him as a friend. He'll always be my friend. We'll always love him. So love you guys. Thank you very much. Great evening.
My name is John Troxel, and I met Roland, gosh, 15 years ago or so when I went through Darr, the guy taping me, to try to talk Roland into coming out and doing a show because he didn't think anybody cared. Well, lots of people cared, and he found that out. But I got to be friends with Roland just from him coming to a couple shows, and he says, well, I'll help you with your funny car. I said, Roland, I can't afford you. He said, oh, you can't not afford me. So he got to helping me with my funny car, and he would come and hang out with us. And why, I don't know, because he wasn't basking in glory or winter circles hanging around with a bunch of white guys from the Midwest, you know. But we had a ball with Roland. We learned so much from Roland. He had us to his house. He took us to places we could never get to in our lifetime. And we were just beside ourselves that he would come and help us. And it's just a life that we never imagined we would know. And so we were so thankful to have known Roland, and we're so thankful that the family shared him with us, and we will miss him the rest of our life. But I want the family to know how much we appreciate them letting Roland go out and hang out with a bunch of rednecks from Missouri. And so we will miss him forever, but thank you for letting him come out and hang out with us, and you have our condolences. I don't know what else to say, but thanks.
Hi, my name's Steve Bryson, and I just wanted to tell a quick story about my good friend Roland. Unfortunately, I met him later in life, and we had an opportunity. I called it the Thursday Lunch Club. We'd all get together, drive up to the marina, pick him up, and head for the Hawaiian Spam place in Culver City. And we did that every other week for a long time. And you know, Don Perdome would come up, and Galvin and myself, and Couch, and just everybody, as many people. Sometimes we'd have 25 or 30 people at lunch, and sometimes we'd just have, you know, the core group of just us. He was one of the finest men that I had the pleasure of knowing. I can honestly say that the bus tour that he took us on in Hawaii when he was inducted into the Hawaiian Hall of Fame was one of the finer moments, and he was healthy and laughing and having a good time. And I miss you, buddy, and it's about all I got.
Hi, my name is Ray Romo, and the first time I met Roland when I was 8, he was always very nice to me, and he got to show me all his legend trophies. I've always missed him very much. Even when I haven't seen him, still feel like we're good friends. He gave a lot of happiness in my life, and I kind of feel like even though he's gone, he's not done being a race car legend. And that's one of the reasons why he's such a good guy. He was never mean, never to me, nothing. He was always really nice. That's why everyone would always love Roland. We will miss you forever.
My name is Steve Gibbs, former competition director for NHRA. And I guess we're here to talk about Roland. And God, you know, all my years I put on 400 national events during my tenure with NHRA, and I doubt there was one that Roland wasn't there in some fashion, either as a car owner, you know, or a crew chief. I mean, Roland was always there, a huge supporter of the sport. Tonight I spoke at the meeting here in the memorial for Roland and mentioned his mom, and I just think it's hard to talk about Roland's career without mentioning his mom, Teddy. She was so wise in getting Roland started in the direction that he wanted to go. He was going to be a racer. Roland, I mean, he was born to be a racer, and she saw that, and his dad wasn't real happy, but she came to the mainland and sought out the right advice through the NHRA, Wally Parks and Jack Hart, and they got Roland hooked up with the dragmaster guys, Jim Nelson and Dode Martin, and set him on a career that, you know, it's pretty obvious tonight that Roland Leong had as good a career as a drag racer can have. You could talk all night long about the cars and the drivers and the records and the things he accomplished. But you know, I doubt after all the years he did it, there was anybody out there that loved the sport more than Roland Leong. And it was an honor to have him as a friend. And I knew Roland away from the racetrack too, in ways that a lot of people never had that experience. So my utmost respect for Roland Leong.
Roland was neighbor down the street on Sanford Street. Always walking by every now and then and would see Roland out there washing that car with that waterless cleaner that he loved, and he had the sparking cars all the time. But I enjoyed coming in and talking with Roland a few times over the years. Last 20 years I've been living there, and see him every now and then, and just really enjoyed Roland and had a great time always talking with him. Great guy. Miss him bunch. Anyway, take care everyone. Bye-bye.
Dean Antonelli, most people know me as Guido. I'm crew chief for Ron Capps. Back in the mid-90s, I started working for John Force Racing, and so when the Capps started working on the Copenhagen car, Roland came on board. I was a crew guy, so a lot of my friends, you know, worked on Snake's cars. So we'd go hang out, and so like, I think you heard in the stories tonight, somebody mentioned about how he'd want to know the details about what the guys did last night. And so even though we were a competitor, when I'd go over to see Brian Benetti or one of the guys, he would like, Guido, what'd you guys do last night? I'm like, oh, we just went and hung out. He's like, no, tell me what you did. And so I'd look at Brian, because I don't want to get Brian in trouble, you know, because we probably weren't doing things we should on a race night, but he was just always like, super cool. A lot of people talked about always smiling, laughing. You know, I never worked for him, but never heard of anybody saying he got leveled like at, you know, at Forces, if you did something wrong, you got scolded pretty good by Coyle, and that was his method of teaching you. And so it seemed like over there, Roland just kind of let it roll off the back and kind of maybe let the people figure out for themselves they made the mistake. So a different type of environment.
Mike Lewis.
Tell me something about Roland.
Well, I first met Roland in person when I took over managing Maple Grove in 1971. Obviously followed him all during his career. But what amazed me most was, it's probably 10 years. We were racing Nostalgia Funny Cars in Martin, Michigan, and Roland was as enthusiastic about just helping people. There was a 392 alcohol, forgive me for not remembering the driver's name, but Roland would come in and help him tune the car as if it was the Hawaiian at the Nationals in the 1970s. So he never lost his enthusiasm for drag racing or funny cars, and never lost he was just everybody's best friend.
Todd Harrison. There's no way to start. Roland and I talked about his eulogy, and we got one sentence. I'm sorry, kids, for saying this, but his two favorite things besides family and racing were the left one and the right one. And Roland loved that. We said that over and over, and I never got to the second sentence of the eulogy. I had a father, I had a grandfather, but I had a Roland. And he treated me like no one else. The memories I have from him, he'd always call me, "How's Shelby? How's your daughter?" Send me pictures of all the grandchildren, horseback riding. You know, the first time I met Lonnie, in my phone, her name is Daughter of the Royal Pineapple. I have some of the best memories of my career of racing is with your dad. He took me to so many places. He called me up once and said, "Hey, come to Cordova. I'm Grand Marshal. Got a hotel room. Don't need a car. Just fly in. That's all you gotta do is pay for the flight." And then we started arguments of being Jewish, who's cheaper, the Chinese or the Jews, and your dad always thought he won. So I land in whatever airport, and I get in the rental car and I drive. My phone's blowing up. You know, your dad wants to know where I am, what I'm doing, what type of car. When do you get? I'm like, "Roland, I'm 20 minutes away." "Oh, I'll meet you in the lobby." Okay. So I get there and he meets me at the door. "We have a problem." Roland, there's never a problem when you're with Roland. We're walking the elevator. He goes, "There's only one bed." "That's okay. There's got to be a love seat, a couch, worst case, a bathtub. It's one night. I can sleep in a bathtub." And as he opens the door of the bedroom, and he is livid, you know how your dad would get, and he's walking down the hallway just pissed. And he opens the bedroom door in the hotel room, and the first thing I see in is the shower. It's a stand-up shower. There's no bathtub. Strike one. I'm fucked. Come around the corner, no chair, no desk. There's just a king-size bed. He goes, "I got it. Don't worry, I got it covered." In the corner of the room was one of those long round pillows that the hotels would put as a decoration. And he goes, "We put it in the middle, don't cross over." Okay. So my claim to fame is I've slept with a Hall of Famer. It's a little strange though, you know, one thing being a man sleeping in bed with another man, especially an older man. And we're laying there, we turn the lights off and we're talking. A very odd situation. And I don't know how it happened, but our toes touched. I don't think the two of us have moved so quick in our lives away from each other. But again, I've slept in bed with a Hall of Famer. And I love Roland. So many memories. You guys have just treated me so well. I remember going to Philly and playing ping pong with you, Lonnie, and telling your dad how competitive you were. "Oh yeah, she's really good." And just the stories. My backyard has plumeria everywhere. I love you guys. I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Steve Sanchez. I do cylinder heads. I did the cylinder heads on a lot of Roland's cars. But I don't even want to talk about racing. Roland and I were friends if there wasn't racing. The one story I wanted to share was, it was Roland that taught me how to be a connoisseur of Asian food. We were in Atlanta, Georgia, of all places. And Wes Cerny was the crew chief, and Todd Okahara was in the crew. And well, you know, Roland's Hawaiian, and so is Todd, and Wes's wife was from Thailand, so they knew a lot about Asian food. They said, "We're gonna go out to dinner, do you wanna go?" And I said, "Sure." So we jump in the car, and we're in Georgia, and we're driving around through curves and over hills and through the woods and everything else, and all of a sudden, here's this big Chinese restaurant. And we walked in the front door, the maitre d' looks and says, "Oh, you're racing cars this weekend." So they all knew him already, okay? So we go in there and ordered, and I ordered what I always order in a Chinese restaurant. What do I know? So I'm eating my dinner, and Roland reaches across on Wes's plate and grabs something, puts it on my plate. He goes, try that. I said, all right. So then he reaches over on Todd's plate, grabs, here, try this. Okay. And he takes something off his own plate. And pretty soon, I'm eating everybody else's dinner. And finally, it was all good. Mom's getting full. I says, does anybody want any of this? And they're like, no, we're not going to eat that. And so from then on, we'd go out to dinner a lot. And I was never allowed to look at a menu. Roland always ordered. Roland always chose the restaurants to go. And then he started to find out what I liked. And so one time we were at Pomona, he goes, Sanchez, Jap food, you ready? And I said, yep, I'm ready. So that was my story. And it was, before it was over, I remember in '99 I was in Hawaii and I was eating poke, which is basically a raw piece of fish about the size of a deck of cards, and you just grab it with a little sauce or however it was seasoned and shove it in your mouth. And when I tell people that story, like, oh God, really? And I'm like, yeah, it's out of this world. I'd have it every day if I could. But that was just what I wanted to share. I spent lots of time with Roland, and again, outside of racing, even if there wasn't racing, Roland would still be my friend.
Hi, I'm Mike O'Brien, and Roland was one of my all-time idols and mentors in drag racing. And just a couple quick stories is he would call, or I hadn't seen him in a while, we'd be at the track, the first thing out of his mouth is, tell me, what's the latest gossip? You would know what's going on. There were other times that, just being around him, he would text and call me, want to know how the car is doing, what's going on. He would want to know all the intricacies, everything going on with the race car, and it was just so incredible to me that he would be calling me, somebody, I'm not much anybody out in the sport, but to have the great Roland Leong call me or text me, it was just the highlight of my life. And I loved him, I told him that, and then I'm going to miss him greatly. So, aloha, Roland.
Well, I haven't known Roland as long as a lot of the people that you're going to have on this tape. But I met Roland in the mid-'70s. And Roland, I was running a racetrack up in Western Canada, in Edmonton, Alberta. And I used to book in 32 funny cars in the summertime, and Roland was one of them. And he came up, and then what we did, I worked in conjunction with the track operator in Calgary. So I'd run one night, and the Calgary track would run the next night. Well, the operator at the Calgary track, he was sort of a fun-loving guy that no matter how well you ran, he would try and chisel you on the payout at the end of the day. And to him it was a game, but a lot of people didn't realize it was a game. He always would pay you, but it was this game that he played. Well, he played it with Roland. And Roland didn't argue much. He wasn't happy, and he just left and came back to the United States. And about 2 weeks later, he bought a full-page ad in National Dragster saying, if anybody's going to race in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, please contact me first. Call collect. And he never did come back up to my racetrack. But then I moved to California to work for NHRA in '84, and I got to know Roland at obviously the events and the March meet and so on. And I gotta say, he was a prince of a guy. Never any problem. He was devoted to the sport. He was focused on the sport. And we never had any altercations whatsoever. He was just one of the good guys, and we're all gonna miss him. He, over the years, put out a lot of good performing race cars out there, mostly in funny car, some top fuel cars, whatever. From what I'm told, tried to drive them back a number of years ago and decided that maybe hiring drivers was the way to go. But he was also in the nostalgia business. He worked for a friend of mine in Edmonton, Ron Hodgson, that has a nostalgia funny car, and Roland was a crew chief on that for a while and did a fine job there also. But we're gonna miss him. He was a great guy.
Oh, Roland, man, we had a lot of fun. I first started working with Roland in '09 on the Troy Lee car, and we won 6 out of 9 races that year between IHRA and NHRA, so we had a very, very successful season. And always called Roland, he was my favorite ornamental. he thought that was kind of cool. So that's my story.
Well, I met Roland back, you know, I grew up here. I went to Santa Ana, California. That's where I grew up. And for me, going to Lions drag strip on a Saturday or a Sunday, it was something I did almost every single weekend. And one weekend I was out there and I ended up meeting Roland, and I got to talking to him. So every time I saw him, I talked to him. And a little tidbit going further back, my dad was in the Marines and he was stationed at Camp Pendleton. And he had a technical trade of doing automobile upholstery. So he had a little upholstery shop in Carlsbad, and it was in a bunch of these old Quonset huts down off State Street in Carlsbad, and one of the people there was Dragmaster, Don Martin and Jim Nelson. And you know, early days, a lot of guys all run their cars. And that's when I really first met Roland, was down there, but just in a quick conversation. And later when I met him at Lions, you know, I just reminded him of it and he remembered, oh yeah, you know, because my dad used to do a lot of the upholstery for those cars. In those days, there's no such thing as Velcro. They used snaps. So they'd put the snaps on the, and they would have the pads on the roll bar and the padded seat. And my dad used to do some of that stuff for some of the guys. And that's how I got to meet, you know, I met Danny Angaias and Mickey Thompson, you know, the list goes on and on, Art Malone, you know, all these guys that I met back when I was a kid. And I say those things sometimes to me and they look at me like, no you don't, you didn't know that, you run alcohol. It doesn't matter kind of fuel you run. You know, I just met them along the way because we all went to the same drag strip. But anyway, my deal with Roland, and one day I made this remark to him, and he turned around and he looked at me and he goes, well, you know what that is? And I go, what's that? And he goes, we were younger than they were. And he was talking about Perdomo, all these guys are a lot older. And he was saying that he was a lot younger than those guys at that time. And I remember him saying that, and I kind of laughed because he goes, yeah, we were kids. You know, it always made me laugh. And but I wouldn't see him for years, and all of a sudden I run into him somewhere. And I hadn't seen Roland in probably, 10, I used to see him at the races all the time because he started working for Perdomo, and I was running my alcohol dragster. And then I quit running my alcohol dragster in 1998, and I took a hiatus, and then I started racing with my son in the off-road racing, and so I got away from drag racing. And then when I got kind of come back, he came up to me with one of the, I think it was up at Bakersfield, he came up to me and he goes, what are you doing? He goes, are you stupid? And I go, yeah, I am, you know, because I'd gotten back into running a car. And I told him, I said, you know, Roland, I said, what my deal was that I've run dragsters, long skinny cars, my entire life. And I said, when I was watching some of these nostalgia cars, you know, because the good guys had actually put on a program out at the Pomona. And I said, I've really been thinking about doing this. And he said, why? And I said, because I never did it in my life. I said, I've never run nitro. And I said, I drove a car that was a nitro car, but I said, I've never personally run the nitro myself. And I said, I've never run a funny car. And I said, so I think I'd like to run a funny car. And that's what I did. I built the car and started running it.
Hey, just a couple of my favorite memories of working with Roland Leong. As an artist and a sign painter, getting started in the race car business back in the late 60s and the 70s, what I call the great funny car boom in the 70s, to be able to letter one of Roland's cars and work on the paint job was a big thrill for me. And of course, we didn't do the first one. I believe George Cerny painted it, and the great Tom Kelly did the lettering, and of course created that beautiful bamboo style on the side of the car. And so it was maybe the second car, the third car, I don't know, but it was one of his Dodge Chargers, the same color scheme, same lettering, everything. And so I was just thrilled to work on that and try to duplicate that bitch and bamboo lettering on the side. And you know, when you work, when you're a service provider in the racing industry, getting paid is of course important, a big part of it. And you work with the different racers and you find out there's kind of two categories. There's good pay, then there's not so good pay. And Roland was good pay. I might point out that the best pay in drag racing was our host tonight, the greatest funny car racer of all time, Don Perdome. This is the best pay. Boy, you're not even done with the job and the snake's writing you a check. So that's another record he holds, best pay in drag racing. But Roland was good pay, but he was frugal. He would watch every dime, and I'm sure Susie can attest. But that's, those things are terribly expensive. So he was just doing his job there. But I remember the last part of the job was to paint the decals along the bottom of the car. And of course, back then they had stickers, but we'd paint all the logos and stickers on the car. So I'm getting ready to do that. And so Roland was there to tell me what he wanted on the car. And he says, Kenny, you paint Krager, both sides. I says, yeah. He said, how much? I said, $25. Okay. And I'd do that and he'd say, okay, Kenny, you paint Federal Mogul, both sides. How much? $25, Roland. Okay, I paint that. Kenny, you paint Champion, both sides. I says, it's $25, Roland, whatever you want. But so we get done with the car and he says, Kenny, can you send the bill to my sponsor? And I says, yeah, I could, Roland, but I said, I could really use some money. How about you pay me and you send the bill to them? Okay. And he would pay it. One of the most wonderful things in life was going to Hawaii with Roland, or being over there while he was there. And even at one time, Terry and I went to Hawaii, and I told Roland, and he wasn't even going to be there, but he arranged for us to meet some of his friends and over there, and we had a great time with him not even being there. But the best Hawaiian trip I ever made was some years ago. A fellow contacted me. He's a promoter and was going to do a car show in Hawaii. First time event, and he was going to have it in the parking lot at Aloha Stadium. And he says, Kenny, I want to have you there. And he says, I'll put you up in a suite on Waikiki. I'll rent you a car. I'll pay you to be there. Do you want to go? Yeah, I think that sounds pretty good. And so not only that, but he said he wanted that Roland and Susie were going to be there at his car show, and Erica Enders and pro stock racer Alan Johnson, and at that time newcomer Ashley Sanford. And he's telling me all these people he's going to have over there. I'm thinking, man, this guy is biting off way more than he can chew. And I've been here before with car shows, and I says, first time show, man, you need to go in easy, but he was counting his chickens, how many tickets he was going to sell, how much money he was having. And I says, that's just a big expense to get all these people over there, but he didn't want to hear it. So we go over there, and Roland, Susie, and we went out to dinner with Roland and Susie one night, and they take us to their favorite locals place down some little side street, and we get in there, and my wife Terry picked up the menu and she started looking at it. Roland says, Terry, you go to order, me order for you. She put it down, you order, Roland. So he, of course, ordered the best food they had there. And then we're out at the event and set up there working, and he's selling t-shirts and things. And his family and friends, because he knows so many people in the Hawaiian family, and they would come out to the event. But the Hawaiian people are so gracious. Terry pointed out later, she goes, did you notice that they would show up in like groups of 5 or 6? They would bring food, and they would stay for a while, and then they would leave. And then the next wave of family and friends would come in with food. They'd stay a while, and they'd leave. They had it down. They didn't overstay or anything like that. And so then finally the show's getting over, and as I expected, the crowd was light because it was a first time event, and I knew this promoter was gonna eat it. And so we're there Sunday afternoon, and we're kind of wrapping things up, and Roland says, Kenny, he says, you get paid yet? You get paid yet for being here? I said, not yet, Roland. He goes, come on with me. I'll get you paid. And so we go over, and the promoter is kind of hiding in his car over in the corner, you know. But we go over there, and Roland says, "Hey, you're gonna pay Kenny, you gotta pay him." And so he paid me, and we're walking away, and Roland just lit up. He says, it took him back to his match race days. He says, "Kenny, I know how to do this. Just like getting paid for to drag races from those promoters. I don't want to get paid. I got you fucking paid." And so he got me paid. And just a great guy. I loved riding around town with him and telling stories. And I wish I'd have been able to spend more time with him. Roland Leong and family, we love you.
So Roland Leong, what was my interaction with him? Of course, I knew him later as a board member of Lions Museum, but when I was young, literally, you know, you'd go to Sacramento Raceway or to Half Moon Bay, whatever it was, and the Hawaiian was always there, the car. And for me, you know, it became a Revell kit. It was, you know, it was iconic that way, but I always loved Hawaii anyway, and having the car named the Hawaiian, and it had the torch with the flames coming out of it down the car, I thought, I want to do that for a living. It wasn't that I wanted to drive the cars. I wanted to be Kenny. I mean, literally, you know, Kenny was doing this stuff, and I thought, I want to be Kenny Youngblood. Instead of, I want to be, you know, Ron Capps, because who would? But I mean, honestly, I just, when that car came out, and I saw the graphics and saw what could be done with not just the name, but just everything in it, I was stunned. And I thought he did like a lot of, I guess you'd call them Easter eggs in the renderings, because it was always like some kind of Hawaiian print or something in there. And then I thought, he's the coolest dude alive, because he went through every iteration of racing with Hawaiian Punch, King's Hawaiian, but it was always Hawaiian, and I thought, this is genius. I mean, it was so good, and you know, he's such the nicest guy you'd ever meet. I just think, you know, I can't tell him now, but I think he knew. But through Prudhomme and Ron and those guys, you know, I just say how influenced by his vision of what a race car should look like has just, it changed my life then, and it's changed it ever since. So there you go.
My name is Richard Shelley. I'm glad Roland's where he is today. He's not in pain, and I've grown to love him. Kind of funny, I was thinking about it, and I knew of Roland when I was younger. You know, although we're only 7 years apart, as a younger person in high school, I was a car person and read all the magazines. I lived on the East Coast, and Roland was one of the people in there. And I thought, well, that's so far out in life, you know, but I attended all the drag races on the East Coast and read all the magazines. And never thinking I would ever be involved with anything to do with racing or people in racing. Lo and behold, my brother Howard was a marketing and salesperson for different organizations, but ended up with R.J. Reynolds and Hawaiian Punch. And hence, Hawaiian Punch. We meet. I meet Roland. We're in the 80s now, right? And it was a great meeting, and we became friends, along with my brother. And Roland to me was two people. He was the race person, and he was Roland, the home person, the Hawaiian. He opened up his house, he opened up his family, and I reciprocated the same way with our family. I lived on the East Coast. I moved around a lot, but I lived on the East Coast, so when the teams would come to the East Coast, I welcomed Roland into my house. We'd go out. I moved to Santa Barbara. I then moved back to New York. Roland still came, and he'd still come to the house, and we'd go out. And he loved coming to my office in New York. He loved New York. the many aspects of it. And he would come and leave me at work, and then he would go on and do just a walking tour on his own, going through the city for the whole day, and then we'd go home at night. I moved from there to Utah. We still kept in touch, always. I moved again to Las Vegas. Again, we're in touch again, and back to Utah. But we've always been in touch, and I realized over 40 years, and close relationship. I feel is a close relationship because we did talk about cars and the race scene and everything that goes on with the race scene. But I'd say 70% of the time we talked about families and family life and the goings on within a family. And I have a big family. So it meant a lot to me. And he welcomed all my kids, grandkids, anybody. He taught us what it was to have ohani, I think it is. And he welcomed us when we went to Hawaii with his family and his sister and his mom and all of the friends over in Hawaii. Big part of my life.
Glenn Cromwell, NHRA, and just want to say on behalf of everyone at the NHRA, our condolences go out to Roland and Roland's family. And you know, my relationship with Roland, you know, I didn't really get a chance to spend time with him when he was a driver, owner, crew chief, but I did get to spend time with Roland as a legend of our sport. And you know, I worked in the marketing department at the time, and you know, Roland was great. He'd come out and whatever we asked him to do, autographs, interviews, he was there. And he really loved the sport, loved the NHRA, and I love that legends like Roland give back, and I think that means a lot to all of us at the NHRA that he gave back to a sport that he loved.
Roland just meant the world to me, like he did to so many people. I didn't know growing up that his house was maybe 5 miles from where I lived, and we didn't learn that till much later, but we shared the same birthday, May 22nd, and there wasn't a single year when I knew him from the 80s on that he didn't text me or call me or something and wish me happy birthday, and I would always do the same. He was a special, special man. I love him and I miss him already.
Dennis Taylor. I think I met Roland back in the mid-70s, probably 1977, when I was a crew member on the Green Elephant Nitro Funny Car out of Seattle. And after I had quit working on that particular car, I came home, and one of the things that I did was kind of took over where Tony Nancy had left off. Tony had quit doing race car upholstery and roll bar padding and such, and that kind of fell into my lap, and that's when I really got to know Roland. Had done seat upholstery and roll bar padding for pretty much all of those guys from probably the mid to late 70s on. And I'll remember this time that Roland came to me, you know, in his pidgin English, or, you know, however you want to describe it. You know, he was always kind of hard to understand all the time. And he says, roll bar padding too heavy. It's too heavy. I mean, it's hardly nothing, you know, it's some vinyl and some foam and some snaps that, you know, wrapped around the roll cage. He says, oh, and I need to make it lighter. I'm on a big weight kick. So Roland was the first guy we made this for, and we basically made like a half shell of roll bar padding, and he would drill holes into the tubing of the roll cage, and we put snaps in there, and instead of the roll bar padding going all the way around the tubing, we just made it a half size. And you know, back then we thought, you know, that kind of padding and stuff was you know, going to be good enough. Obviously, as we learned later, it was like not having any on there in the first place. But you know, that was Roland. You know, it's too effing heavy, and it's too effing this and too effing that. And as I later would work on a top fuel dragster and eventually drive one, with a partner named Dave Braskett. We had a shop at Keith Black's, and Roland had one of the shops down the way at Keith Black's. So it was always a good time to be up there on a weeknight or on a Saturday when Roland was there and all the guys. And I remember when they got the first 18-wheeler that they ever had and brought it up there to Keith Black's, they had a hell of a time just parking the thing in the gate. But Roland was a kick. He was always friendly and a good guy to me, even through up through the nostalgia days. And have nothing but fond memories and good things to say about Roland Leong. Bless you, Roland. May you rest in peace.
So life lessons with Roland. One time we were heading out to the Quad Cities, which is East Moline, Bettendorf. It's on the Iowa, Illinois border on the Mississippi River. And we were based out of Ron Colson's house at the time. And we miscalculated. We had to go there for displays before the race at Cordova, the World Series of Drag Racing. And we ended up getting there like at about 2 or 3 in the morning. And obviously you couldn't get you could get a hotel, but you had to pay for a full day. And Roland was a little bit tight with the money back then. There was no way that he was going to pay for a hotel room that we were only going to be there for 4 or 5 hours because we had to be set up for the display at 8 o'clock in the morning. So what does he do? He goes to an all-night adult movie theater. They had those back in the day. This is probably 77, 78. And we go in there and we stayed in there instead of buying a hotel room and slept in this thing. And I got my first look at this thing, and all these guys in trench coats watching this thing. I'm like, what the hell they all got trench coats for, Roland? Oh, yeah, don't worry about it. Go to sleep. Either watch a movie or go to sleep. Just be quiet. So we spent 4 hours in an adult theater waiting until we could go set up, go do the display, and then go check into our hotel room. All to save at that time was probably about $28 because we were just staying at a Motel 6 anyway. But that was Roland. It was crazy, but it was fun.